Suho commanded. Arise. Dark shadows swirled around the goblin leader's corpse, binding it to Suho's will. The lifeless body rose, now reborn as his shadow soldier. Observing the result, Suho muttered to himself. The skill wasn't as impressive as he had imagined. Beru explained that newly extracted shadow soldiers were often weaker than they were in life. Suho glanced at the smaller goblin leader, questioning if they also shrank. Beru confirmed with a calm tone, assuring him the difference in strength was only slight. Suho noticed the shadow soldier would disappear after a day, leaving him disappointed. Beru suggested using shadow storage, but Suho admitted he didn't have that skill yet. Beru explained that shadow abilities were influenced by intelligence stats and level progression, reassuring Suho that the skill would become incredible in time. Suho sighed, telling Beru not to feel so down about it. Suho's stomach growled loudly. Realizing he hadn't eaten in 2 days, Suho asked how to leave the dungeon, and Beru explained he could exit any time using the shadow dungeon key. With hunger gnawing at him, Suho decided to grab something to eat first. Beru nodded respectfully. A notification appeared. Would you like to exit the shadow dungeon? Suho's face blushed with delight, eyes sparkling like twinkling stars as he enjoyed his meal. Suho couldn't believe how delicious hospital food could taste, relishing every bite. Beru, ever dutiful, interrupted his moment of bliss. He explained their next steps. They were assigned 3 missions. The first, protect the earth from otherworldly beasts. Suho realized their task meant entering dungeons and hunting beasts. Beru confirmed, explaining that as Suho's level increased, he would grow stronger, making Earth safer just like the monarch once did. Beru revealed their second mission, to find the missing Lady Hyain by any means necessary. Suho asked if there was a way to locate his mother's whereabouts, but Beru explained that hunting beasts might eventually lead to a clue. Suho acknowledged they had no choice but to enter dungeons. Finally, Beru shared the third mission, to help Suho regain his strength, expressing his desire to show the true power he once wielded against the monarch. Suho asked how to regain his strength, and Beru explained he could absorb magical power and knowledge from consuming targets, though it was far less efficient than before he became a shadow soldier. Without Suho's magic to sustain him, this was the only option. Understanding the situation, Suho realized their path once again led to dungeons. Suho finished his meal and said, "Let's prepare then." Beru said to enter a dungeon you need a hunter, qualification. Go to the Hunter Association and get your magical power measured. Suho wondered about the magical power measurement, knowing he was an awakener who continuously leveled up. Curiosity sparked in his mind. What grade would he receive? A thought crossed him. What if he ended up with an S rank? The measurement lady announced Suho's magical power level, 46. He was classified as an E-rank awakener, the weakest rank. Suho left the Hunter Association building, his expression clouded. Beru explained that a hunter's rank was based on magical power, making it natural for Suho's rank to be lower since his strength relied heavily on power stats. Despite the reassurance, Suho couldn't help but doubt. Could an E-rank like him truly protect Earth with just shadow abilities? Beru reminded him. He possessed something no other hunter had. Level ups. Suho recalled how E-rank and F-rank hunters were rarely recruited for expeditions, making it difficult to even enter dungeons. Frustration flickered in his eyes, until a sudden realization struck him. His eyes widened as he thought, there might be one way. Dungeon raids operated through a systematic division of labor. The assault team led the charge, eliminating beasts. The recovery team followed behind, collecting beast carcasses, while the mining team extracted resources from the dungeon's depths. Among these roles, only the recovery and mining teams allowed E-rank hunters to participate. At the dungeon site, hunters were busy mining resources. Suho wiped his sweat and sighed. Grateful for the chance, he thought about how this opportunity came through the only awakener he knew. The one who helped him was Lee Do-kyun, his former training instructor and art department assistant at Korea University of the Arts. Suho's connection with Lee Dokyun became his unexpected ticket into the dungeon. Even as a low-ranked awakener, Suho felt grateful to have an awakener senior nearby, knowing it was thanks to Lee Dokyun's help that he could work in the dungeon. Dokyun, haunted by guilt, remembered the art incident at Korea University of the Arts. As the only awakener present, fear had driven him to run away, leaving others behind. The regret of his actions weighed heavily on him. Suho reassured him, understanding that E-rank awakeners were advised by the Hunter Association to flee from beasts. Dokyun had only followed the guidelines, doing what was expected of someone at their level. Dokyun's eyes widened in surprise upon hearing Suho's E-rank status. Suho calmly revealed his magical power level was only 46, a number considered low even among E-rank awakeners. Dokyun's shock deepened as he realized Suho's power was higher than his own. Dokyun's memory flashed back to the incident at the art department rooftop. While fleeing, he vaguely recalled seeing Suho fighting a beast. Doubt filled his mind. Had he really witnessed that, or was it just his fear playing tricks on him? Dokyun remarked that if an E-rank truly survived by charging at a beast, it was even more impressive. Baru's calm voice agreed, declaring the young monarch exceptional. Baru's calm voice agreed, declaring the young monarch exceptional. As Dokyun turned toward Baru, his eyes widened in shock, sitting down while shouting in fear. A beast? Suho let out a sigh, glancing at Baru and questioning his sudden appearance. Baru remained composed, explaining that the monarch was still as weak as a larva, so he needed to stay close to protect him and ensure his safety. Dokyun asked if Suho awakened as a summoner-type hunter. Suho nodded, saying it seemed so. Dokyun said many E-rank hunters don't have skills, so he was lucky. He mentioned his skill, running. Suho smirked, saying that must be why Dokyun escaped so well before. Dokyun looked downcast, but Suho smiled and reassured him, saying he was just kidding. Baru thought, as expected of the young monarch, his mental attacks are truly devastating. Suho thought, come to think of it, this is my first time in a dungeon other than the Shadow dungeon. I wonder if the assault team is hunting beasts up ahead. Wolf corpses scattered across the ground. One hunter sighed, saying the dungeon felt empty. Another agreed, noting that only wolf beasts had been appearing. A third hunter encouraged them, reminding that some carcasses might hold magical crystals, so they had to keep working hard until the dungeon's end. A hunter signaled to the captain, pointing toward a narrow side path where something seemed hidden. The captain said, "Look at this." The assault team stepped closer, their gazes fixed on the discovery, examining the unusual sight. In silence, the assault team scanned the mysterious ruin hidden deep within the dungeon. Its weathered walls hinted at an ancient origin. With no beasts detected by their skills, confusion settled among the hunters. The unusual structure raised questions. Why was it here? Some wondered if treasure lay hidden inside instead of a powerful boss monster, pushing their curiosity to investigate it further. The captain stared in disbelief at the mysterious weapon glimmering among the ruins. The hunters marveled, drawn to its sharp edges and eerie aura. The captain observed the weapon, sensing its value. Its craftsmanship hinted at hidden power, but caution lingered. Treasures like this often concealed deadly traps. Yangjun stepped forward, confident in his strength. The captain's warning echoed. Yangjun gripped the sword's handle, ignoring the captain's warning. Trusting his C-rank tank abilities, he believed any trap wouldn't be a threat. Yangjun's face froze in shock as the floor beneath him turned red, revealing spikes and eerie eyes. He pulled the sword cautiously. The captain sighed in relief, assuming there were no traps. Yangjun's eyes glowed with hostility as he snarled, gripping the sword tightly. The captain scolded him to be more careful, but in an instant Yangjun slashed his sword at the captain. The other hunters froze in shock as Yangjun's voice echoed coldly, declaring, "Who dares covet the Fang Monarch's sword?" The miners noticed something unusual, their eyes narrowing in confusion. Nearby, 3 shadow goblins diligently mined crystals, their dark forms moving in perfect sync. Dokyun watched in disbelief, unable to comprehend how Suho possessed such a summoning skill. Dokyun's mind raced, recalling that most summoners could only control 1 or 2 summons at best. Summoning 3 creatures was already unusual. Combined with the talking ghost-like figure, it made 4. The realization left him even more bewildered. Wasn't Suho's power abnormal? Suho reflected that the limit was supposed to be only 3. Although shadow extraction required corpses, using goblin corpses from the shadow dungeon made things more convenient. They carried out simple tasks without complaint. Suho said that shadow extraction was indeed a useful skill, just as Beru had mentioned. Beru replied with a pout, asking not to be praised while doing such dirty work. Then he reminded Suho that entering the dungeon was supposed to be for leveling up, not just labor work. According to Hunter Association rules, E-rank hunters couldn't enter dungeons alone. Since the ranking system was still new, the measurement devices often had errors. Suho thought of leveling up and getting his remeasurement done. He also remembered their third mission, recovering Beru's lost power. Beru's eyes lit up, realizing what Suho meant. Suho recalled that eating something with magic power could help Beru recover. Even the magic stone fragments scattered on the ground contained magic power. Beru's eyes widened, realizing Suho's intentions. Without hesitation, Suho ordered him to quietly pick up the stones and eat them. Beru reluctantly began munching on the magic stones. Beru suddenly shuddered, his body reacting to a powerful presence nearby. Suho noticed the shift, his eyes narrowing. Beru's voice echoed in Suho's mind, heavy with urgency. The presence of a monarch had appeared. Suho's heart raced, his mind flashing to one possibility, his father. Beru's eyes glowed dimly as he scanned the surroundings. It wasn't the monarch he once served. If it were, his power would have instantly returned to its peak. Instead, the lingering aura carried a different scent, one belonging to a beast monarch. A miner's ears perked up at the distant rumbling sound echoing through the tunnel. His eyes narrowed toward the source. That direction. It was undoubtedly the path where the raid party had ventured. From the shadowed depths of the tunnel, 3 crimson eyes flickered to life, piercing through the darkness with an ominous glow, silently watching the miners. The miners froze in shock as a beast emerged from the shadows, its red eyes glowing menacingly. Panic spread among them as they realized the danger. One miner, gripped by fear, raised his pickaxe in a desperate attempt to defend himself. The beast lunged forward, biting down on the pickaxe, snapping it like a twig. Terror filled the miner's face as he stumbled back, helpless. In that moment, Suho appeared, striking the beast with a powerful swing of his pickaxe. Without hesitation, Suho positioned himself between the miners and the beast, buying time for their escape. The miner, filled with gratitude, quickly turned and ran toward the tunnel exit. Suho locked eyes with the beast, its menacing presence filling the tunnel. The name floating above its head glowed orange, signaling its power. In his mind, Suho assessed the situation. The creature's strength seemed on par with the D rank. Mistburn he had fought back at the Korean Art University, a foe he was confident he could defeat on his own. But he wasn't alone. Behind him, Dokyun stood frozen, his presence adding a layer of uncertainty to the battle ahead. Suho glanced at Dokyun, silently offering him a chance to escape. But Dokyun's eyes reflected a newfound determination. Seeing Suho risking his life to protect others, Dokyun's guilt from the past resurfaced. This time, he refused to abandon someone fighting alone. Suho calmly requested Dokyun's assistance if things became dire. With a flick of his hand, 3 shadow goblins emerged, ready for battle. Reaching into his inventory, Suho summoned weapons salvaged from the shadow dungeon, far superior to a mere pickaxe. Dokyun watched in disbelief, his mind racing. The summoning skill Suho displayed was beyond ordinary, not only creatures but weapons as well. What kind of power did Suho truly possess? Suho propelled himself forward, his feet kicking off the ground as he dashed toward the beasts. With swift precision, he slashed through one steel-fanged lichen, its body collapsing instantly. Without losing momentum, he delivered another strike to a second lichen, cutting it down. A dot notification flickered before him. The steel-fanged lichen has been defeated. Dokyun watched in disbelief as Suho stood calmly, the goblin shadows cheering around him. With a single word, "Arise!" Suho commanded. The steel-fanged lichen's corpse trembled before its shadow detached, forming into a new dark soldier. Both Dokyun and the goblin shadows froze, their expressions filled with shock at the sight of Suho's mysterious power. Suho swiftly raised his sword, blocking the incoming strike from the lichen beast. At the same time, the newly summoned lichen shadow lunged forward, launching a counterattack against its former kind, defeated. Beru observed the scene with pride, his thoughts marveling at how quickly the young monarch adapted to combat using shadow powers. Suho, focused on the battle, realized that extraction and summoning required no mana. As his magical power increased, so would the number of extractions he could perform, eventually allowing him to create an entire shadow army. With a determined gaze, he prepared to add another soldier to his growing forces. Another notification appeared. The steel-fanged lichen had been defeated. Suho commanded, "Arise!" The lichen's corpse trembled before transforming into a shadow soldier, rising to join his ranks. The goblin shadows stared in disbelief at their new comrade. One goblin's eyes welled up with tears, its small body trembling, overwhelmed by the sight of their forces growing stronger. Suho commanded "Arise" once more, summoning another shadow soldier from the lichen's corpse. Dokyun watched in disbelief, his heart pounding. The overwhelming strength Suho displayed was far beyond what an E-rank should possess, especially the power to command dead monsters. Suho's thoughts raced, realizing he got too carried away. Dokyun's suspicion grew, his mind turning. Could Suho be a false ranker? Someone who deliberately falsified their rank to hide their true strength? Suho's gaze shifted as a sudden notification flashed before his eyes. A quest window appeared, its chilling message filling his vision. Quest guide. Emergency quest. Defeat the enemy. An entity with murderous intent toward the player has been detected nearby. Secure your safety by defeating it. Suho's expression hardened, sensing the sinister presence lurking in the shadows. The air grew heavy, a sign that the real threat had finally revealed itself. Number of enemies to defeat. 1. Suho's mind raced as he processed the quest notification. He questioned the message. He had already eliminated all visible lichens. Could there be another enemy hidden nearby? Suddenly, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the tunnel. Dokyun's eyes lit up at the sight of a figure from the raid party. Relief washed over him as he assumed the man had survived the earlier attack. He began to speak, unaware of the danger lurking beneath the surface. Without warning, the soldier's sword swung down toward Dokyun. In a split second, Suho lunged forward, grabbing Dokyun and pulling him away, narrowly saving him from the lethal strike. Suho swiftly commanded his newly summoned wolf shadows to attack, their dark forms leaping toward the possessed hunter. His mind recalled the past encounter at the Korean Art University. The red name above the enemy signified a high level of danger. The strength he had experienced firsthand reminded him how formidable such opponents could be. Rationally, retreating with Dokyun would be the safest option. However, Suho's resolve hardened. He needed to confirm the nature of this enemy. He turned his thoughts to Beru, seeking reassurance. The response was clear. While the creature possessed considerable power, it was nowhere near the level of a monarch. Even so, Beru warned that this opponent was still far beyond Suho's current capabilities. Suho's gaze remained unwavering, a spark of determination flickering in his eyes. The system existed to aid his growth, offering quests only if victory was within reach. Despite Beru's cautious thoughts, Suho trusted the system's guidance. This battle wasn't just about survival. It was a stepping stone toward reuniting with his father. The possessed hunter relentlessly slashed through the shadow lichens, its eyes blazing with murderous intent. Each strike carved through the shadows, radiating overwhelming hostility. Suho's heart pounded, but his resolve remained firm. This red-named enemy stood as a wall, blocking his path to strength. Defeating it would mark another step forward, another step closer to his father. With unwavering determination, Suho braced himself for battle, ready to carve his own path to power. Beru watched Suho with deep admiration. Despite facing countless trials, the young monarch had never chosen to run away. Within Suho's still fragile appearance, Beru could see the faint shadow of the great monarch he once served. His sharp instincts quickly analyzed the enemy. The true form of the possessed hunter was the cursed sword controlling the host. If they severed the arm holding the blade, the enemy would lose its power, rendered immobile and helpless. The possessed hunter's burning eyes flared as it let out a piercing scream, launching a frenzied dart attack on the three lichen shadows. The lichens lunged forward, one of them sinking its fangs into the cursed sword, halting the enemy's movements. Suho's eyes widened in surprise as the lichens, who had fallen moments ago, stood back up after he infused them with mana. Their bodies regenerated as if nothing had happened. Beru observed the scene with pride. Shadow soldiers possessed astral forms. No matter how many times they were struck down, as long as the monarch supplied mana, they would rise again, endlessly. The shadow lichens relentlessly attacked the possessed soldier, but their strikes lacked power. Suho observed the struggle, questioning the strength of his soldiers. Beru calmly noted that the shadow's weakened state was due to the young monarch still developing mana. The possessed soldier's voice echoed, filled with disbelief as it questioned how. Suho's eyes widened in shock. The possessed said with disbelief as it questioned how such an insignificant pest could wield the shadow monarch's power. Suho's mind raced, stunned by the creature's speech. Beru's fury flared, his voice echoing with indignation at the insult toward the shadow monarch's bloodline. The possessed soldier's eyes burned brighter, realization dawning as it shouted with hatred, declaring the shadow monarch's bloodline as the enemy of the monarch of fangs. The possessed soldier lunged forward, its attack relentless. Suho smirked, ready to test its strength. With ruler's authority, he flung a weapon from the ground, but the enemy effortlessly dodged. Observing its quick reaction, Suho's eyes shifted toward the scattered weapons on the floor, his mind already calculating his next move. The possessed soldier let out a piercing scream, its rage echoing through the tunnel. Suho's eyes narrowed, realizing that victory would come through sheer quantity. With ruler's authority, he manipulated multiple weapons from the ground, launching them all at once toward the enemy. Beru observed from the shadows, his thoughts admiring how Suho's natural aptitude for ruler's authority had been present since his infancy. The possessed soldier shattered the flying weapons with ease, its furious scream filling the air. Suho lunged forward, swinging his sword, but the enemy effortlessly broke his weapon with a single strike. Panic flickered in Suho's mind. If a goblin weapon couldn't withstand even one blow, it was as if he had no means to fight back. One attack could end him instantly. If the battle had dragged on, any chance of victory would slip away. The possessed soldier sneered, taunting Suho for running away and calling the shadow monarch a coward who hid behind his shadow soldiers. Suho's expression hardened at the insult, considering the remark a low blow. Though he kept his composure, doubt clouded his mind. The provocation was clear, but beneath his calm exterior, he wasn't confident he could face the enemy in direct combat. Frustration filled Suho's mind as he lamented his lack of strength. If only he possessed greater power, the battle might have been different. Seeking answers, he turned to Beru, questioning why, despite his seal being released, his former strength from climbing the tower had not returned. Beru explained that the young monarch's power had been sealed since infancy, and what Suho was experiencing now was merely the gradual return of his innate talent from that time. If Suho had fully regained that power, it would have been more than enough to challenge Itarim. However, the tower was neither a dream nor reality, merely a test to determine if he could handle his own talent. Whether he passed or not, the physical strength he possessed during the trial was destined to vanish afterward. Suho questioned if the entire experience in the tower had merely been a game. However, Baru assured him that the experience was far from useless. He urged Suho to recall the feelings and fighting spirit he had in the tower. Suho recalled his time in the tower, where he primarily fought with his fists. The thought of having gauntlets like those from back then crossed his mind. Baru's earlier words echoed. Shadow soldiers possessed astral forms, capable of recovery as long as mana was not supplied. Realizing he could alter Baru's form at will, Suho made his decision. He extended his dot hand and issued the command, "Arise." The possessed soldier sneered, dismissing the trick as futile. With a roar, it lunged toward Suho, sword raised to deliver a fatal blow. As the blade descended, the shadow lichens swiftly converged around Suho. The soldier's sword smashed down, but instead of cutting through flesh, it met a hardened surface. The possessed soldier's grin faded into shock. Suho had merged the lichen shadows into a massive shadow fist, blocking the attack. Suho's voice rang out, steady and confident. "Steel-fanged lichen. Seems like you're living up to your name." A notification appeared before Suho. Notice: Skill: Shadow Extraction has leveled up. Skill: Shadow Extraction Level 2. Form Change acquired. Requirement: Shadow Authority. No mana consumption. Allows arbitrary transformation of shadow soldiers' forms. The possessed soldier lunged forward with another attack, its sword slashing through the air. Suho met the assault head-on, his shadow-forged gauntlets raised. With his fists clad in the steel-fanged lichen's form, Suho engaged in close-quarters combat, launching a barrage of punches while skillfully blocking the enemy's strikes. Beru observed from the shadows, his thoughts filled with astonishment. The young monarch had transformed shadow soldiers into weapons, an advanced technique that only those who transcended power could freely wield. Though Suho had only just begun to grasp shadow authority, still at the level of a newly hatched ant larva, he instinctively learned the next stage, without any guidance. His combat instincts, sharpened through countless battles, combined with his natural aptitude for ruler's authority, revealed a glimpse of the overwhelming potential buried within him. Suho extended his hand, activating ruler's authority. The dagger behind the possessed soldier shot forward, piercing into its back, drawing a scream from the beast. The sudden attack diverted its attention, creating an opening. Seizing the moment, Suho dashed forward, his eyes burning with determination. His shadow-forged fists pummeled the possessed soldier relentlessly, each blow echoing through the tunnel. The rapid barrage left no room for counterattacks, as Suho's strikes rained down without mercy. With one final, powerful punch, the possessed soldier's body was sent crashing into the floor, its agonized screams filling the cavern as cracks spread beneath its weight. Suho extended his hand once more, harnessing ruler's authority to command the scattered weapons on the floor. Axes, swords, and blades trembled before rising into the air, their edges glinting in the dim light. With a flick of his will, the weapons launched toward the possessed soldier, slashing and piercing from all directions. Suho charged in tandem, wielding an axe to deliver a crushing blow, while the floating weapons continued their relentless assault. With one final blow, Suho's sword pierced through its body, delivering the finishing strike. Suho reflected on the battle, acknowledging his initial worries about facing a red-named enemy. However, the opponent had proven not to be unbeatable. Beru, unwavering in his loyalty, silently praised the young monarch's victory without a hint of doubt. Suho, sensing the insincerity, dismissed the flattery. Despite that, the battle had yielded something far more valuable, a new fighting technique harnessing his shadow powers. With the battle concluded, Suho's attention shifted toward the fallen soldier, ready to claim the rewards of his hard-fought victory. A notification appeared, signaling the completion of Suho's quest. The system prompted him to check his reward. Without hesitation, Suho confirmed. Another message followed, announcing the reward: Runestone Storm Slash. Notice: you have learned the skill Storm Slash. The system displayed the skill's details. Storm Slash, Level 1. Active skill, mana cost, 50. Effect. The power of the howling wind is imbued into the user's sword, enabling them to strike multiple enemies simultaneously. Suho's eyes gleamed as the realization settled in. A skill. Exactly the kind of reward he had wished for the most. His instincts immediately grasped the method to wield it. Shadow energy began to swirl around his hands as he prepared to test the newfound power. His gaze shifted to the weapon lying on the ground, contemplating which one to use. Within the weapon's dormant consciousness, a sinister voice echoed, the remnant will of its former master. It seethed with humiliation, cursing its defeat at the hands of the Shadow Monarch's descendant. Yet, even in defeat, its twisted nature remained. The weapon's will whispered, confident in its vengeance. The boundless greed of humans would be its salvation. The moment Suho laid hands on it, that greed would consume him. Oblivious to the weapon's lingering malice, Suho reached down and grasped it firmly. A notification appeared. Notice: you have obtained the item, Raken's Fang. Suho examined the weapon in his hand, its craftsmanship far surpassing the crude goblin weapons he had used before. Satisfaction flickered in his eyes as he gripped it tightly, feeling its weight. Within the blade, a faint, resentful will stirred, the lingering consciousness of the weapon itself. It writhed in disbelief, unable to comprehend that a mere human bearing the power of the Shadow Monarch could resist its dominion. Without hesitation, Suho focused his mind, eager to test the weapon alongside his newly acquired skill. A notification appeared before him. Blessing. Great Spellcaster Candiaru's Blessing. The message detailed the blessing bestowed by the Great Spellcaster Candiaru, a powerful enchantment granting him a body free from disease, poison, and any negative status effects. Under its influence, even sleep would drastically enhance his regenerative abilities, allowing him to recover at an accelerated rate. Suho gripped the sword tightly, his eyes fixed forward as he charged with focused intent. A surge of mana flowed through his body, activating the Storm Slash skill. With a powerful swing, the blade cut through the air, unleashing a howling gust that smashed into the ground. The impact shattered the earth beneath his feet, leaving a deep fissure in its wake. Assessing the aftermath, Suho noted the toll the skill had taken on his mana. Though its not destructive power impressed him, the high mana consumption posed a clear limitation. Meanwhile, Beru watched from the shadows, his voice echoing with discontent. To him, Suho's enthusiasm for the sword skill seemed far too reserved compared to the limitless potential of shadow extraction, an ability capable of wielding power hundreds, even thousands of times, greater than any ordinary attack. Dokyun woke up, his head still spinning. Suho stood nearby, observing him. As Dokyun's eyes adjusted, confusion filled his face. Suho motioned toward the exit. When Dokyun noticed the corpse of the possessed hunter, shock washed over him, leaving him speechless. Outside the gate, Suho prepared to re-enter the dungeon, determined to search for any remaining survivors. Dokyun, still shaken, gave a small nod, silently agreeing to wait. Suho stood silently in front of the gate, his figure unwavering. Dokyun watched from behind, his thoughts racing. An E rank with a summoning skill, someone who should be insignificant in the minor leagues. How could Suho be so powerful? Yet none of that mattered now. What truly mattered was that Suho had saved everyone. The lichens bared their fangs, eyes burning with hostility. Suho lunged forward, his shadow gauntlets crashing into their bodies with relentless force. A notification appeared. You have defeated steel-fanged lichen. Another message followed. Notice. Level up. Suho scanned the surroundings, sensing the presence of numerous wolf-type magic beasts still lurking inside. Beru urged him to seize the remaining beasts for experience. Suho's gaze shifted to his weapon, noticing its attacks had become noticeably weaker. The sword spirit sneered, refusing cooperation. Item: Raken's Fang. Type: Sword. Attack: 30. Blood 5 stat correction. Effect: The spirit of Raken dwells within this sword, and those of low status may have their bodies taken if they wield it. Beru criticized the ability for targeting weaker opponents. The sword defended itself, arguing no hunter targets prey stronger than itself. Beru pointed out that the young monarch had defeated a much stronger opponent. Suho found the situation chaotic, witnessing both a talking insect and a talking sword. Suho approached the crystal cart, stepping into the sanctuary of the monarch of fangs. His gaze not fell upon the hunter's lifeless corpses, his eyes reflecting a mix of sorrow and anger. Beru acknowledged their deaths, while the sword coldly justified the massacre, claiming its duty was to eliminate all intruders who dared to trespass the sanctuary. Suho picked up the sword and pierced it into the floor, silencing it with a stern command to remain quiet for a moment. Suho observed the corpses and wondered if shadow extraction could be used on humans. Beru explained that any corpse, regardless of its kind, could be turned into a shadow soldier. Suho extended his hand toward the corpse, but withdrew it, choosing to pick up the body instead. Beru questioned why he wouldn't perform shadow extraction. Suho responded, feeling conflicted, that forcing them to fight even after death would be another form of punishment. Beru called out to him softly. Suho shifted the conversation, asking if this place was truly the sanctuary of a monarch. Beru confirmed. Suho's gaze hardened as he questioned whether his father, also a monarch, had slain others like him, and if those monarchs were connected to Itarim as well. Beru explained that Itarim could be seen as his king's current enemy, while the monarchs were his previous adversaries. He revealed there were 9 monarchs in total. Suho's father, the great Sung Jinwoo, was the king of the dead, the monarch of shadow. Others included the king of beasts, the monarch of fangs, the queen of insects, the monarch of plagues, the king of monstrous humanoids, the monarch of the iron body, the king of demons, the monarch of white flames, the king of giants, the monarch of the beginning, the king of snowfolk, the monarch of frost, the king of demonic specters, the monarch of transfiguration, and finally, the king of berserk dragons, the monarch of destruction. Though each monarch possessed unimaginable power, the 8 who invaded Earth had all perished at the hands of his king. Suho's eyes widened in disbelief upon hearing Beru's explanation. The sword's voice echoed in his mind, filled with hatred. The weapon confirmed that the monarch of shadow was the enemy who had slain its master, the monarch of fangs. It growled, declaring that if its strength had been untarnished, it would have ripped Suho to pieces and fed him to the wolves. Suho's expression remained calm as he responded, understanding the sword's resentment. He had reasoned that his father must have fought the other monarchs to protect the earth, just as the sword had defended the sanctuary from intruders. Both sides had acted to protect what they cherished. However, one thought troubled Suho, the sword's blind hostility toward him solely because he was the blood of the Shadow Monarch. If the weapon's mission was to protect the sanctuary, wasn't it foolish to act hostile toward the one who had defeated the Monarch of Fangs? Suho declared his desire to reunite with his parents, separated by the outer world invaders. He resolved to wield any power necessary to reach his goal. Acknowledging that the sanctuary wouldn't be spared from Itarim's invasion, he proposed an alliance. The sword's spirit wavered, conflicted by the thought of cooperating with the Shadow Monarch's descendant. Suho gripped the sword firmly, proposing a united front between Shadow and Fang. On a cloudy day in town, Dokyun sat for an interview. The interviewer asked him to share the details of the full strike squad wipeout that occurred in the D-rank dungeon the previous day. As the sole survivor of the incident, Dokyun replied with determination, ready to reveal everything. Dokyun believed that even as an E-rank, Suho's treatment would improve if he received recognition. It was his chance to repay his debt. That evening, an article surfaced on the internet detailing an incident where an E-rank hunter single-handedly rescued hunters in a dungeon. The article included interviews from witnesses who saw the heroic hunter charging at magic beasts to save lives, along with testimonies from the countless people he had saved. In the office, 2 men discussed recruiting porters. One suggested reinforcing the pickup team with more E-rank hunters. Lee Young-ho from the Black Tortoise Guide Management Team 2 reviewed a candidate. The report detailed an E-rank hunter who evacuated the mining team in a D-rank dungeon, fought magic beasts, and carried out wounded strike squad hunters. Surprised by the feat, Young-ho saw an opportunity. A hero rising from E-rank would make a killer headline. Without hesitation, he decided to contact the hunter immediately. The man dropped his phone in shock as Lee Young-ho asked if Hunter Sung Soo-ho had replied to the Black Tortoise Guild's invitation. The offer, extended to an E-rank hunter, seemed like a great opportunity. However, the man reported that Soo-ho had declined, stating he wasn't planning to join any guild. Young-ho, bewildered, questioned how a new E-rank hunter could refuse an offer from such a prestigious guild. The man reassured him that Soo-ho might call back once he realized how unreasonable it was to remain without a guild. Soo-ho checked his phone, sighing at the flood of offers from various guilds since returning from the dungeon. Beru observed that many coveted Soo-ho's talent. However, Soo-ho noticed all the offers were for collector or porter roles, leaving him puzzled by the sudden interest. Soo-ho disregarded the offers, aware that joining a guild would hinder his growth through the leveling system. Shifting his focus, he fixed his eyes on Raken's Fang, ready to resume their silent exchange. Soo-ho gripped the sword, proposing an alliance between Shadow and Fang. The sword's thoughts wavered at the bold suggestion, finding it absurd yet intriguing. After a moment of silence, the sword agreed with one condition: to be taken to another sanctuary of the Monarch of Fangs. Soo-ho asked the sword if it knew the sanctuary's location. The sword confidently declared its ability to sense the Monarch of Fang's sanctuary, regardless of distance. However, it revealed the gate leading there had already disappeared, likely due to what humans referred to as a dungeon break. Soo-ho deduced that the sanctuary must have transformed into a field-type dungeon. A field-type dungeon refers to land that has become deserted due to a dungeon break occurring at an abandoned gate where monsters now inhabit the area. Soo-ho sent a message to his uncle, preparing to head toward the location where the sanctuary was, hidden. Evening settled over the mountains, casting shadows on the restricted area enclosed by a metal gate. Soo-ho stood before it, aware that the place was occupied by the Hyena Guild, a group notorious for harboring gangsters. Trespassing on private property was illegal, and the area was crawling with ruffians. Beru suggested that leveling up would be a better option than listening to the sword. Soo-ho ignored him, preparing to enter. He cloaked the surveillance camera with his aura before, delivering a powerful punch, destroying it without hesitation. With no evidence left behind, Beru couldn't help but notice how much Soo-ho resembled the monarch in his decisive actions. Soo-ho entered the place and halted, noticing the thick fog surrounding the area. Beru explained that the fog was magic from outer space, capable of breaking dimensional barriers and generating rifts in the world. The sanctuary he once guarded had wandered through those rifts, connecting to Earth. The beings from outer space were drilling massive holes in the dimension to send their troops in, as the stronger their magic power, the more they were affected by dimensional movement, just like Beru. Soo-ho processed the information, realizing that the stronger beings would take time to arrive. He resolved to use the opportunity to level up. As he stood ready, monsters emerged from the fog, razor-clawed Bariga and Black Shadow Razan, slowly approaching him. The sword anticipated its chance to display its power, but Soo-ho dismissed the idea of wielding it. As the monster lunged, Soo-ho countered with a swift punch. Drawing from the fundamentals he learned in the tutorial, he used Ruler's authority for mid to long-range support, combined various weapons to disrupt enemies. With Storm Slash activated, he unleashed a devastating attack. By acquiring tools through shadow extraction, Soo-ho established his new fighting style. Beru praised Soo-ho's prowess, calling it outstanding. The sword observed in disbelief, realizing the true power of the Shadow Monarch's bloodline. The more enemies Soo-ho faced, the longer the battle stretched, only for him to grow stronger by raising those he defeated. At this rate, the sword feared their side would inevitably lose the war. Soo-ho commanded Arise, summoning 5 shadow soldiers, his current limit after boosting his intelligence stats. Baru remarked that the number was nothing compared to the tens of millions of soldiers the great monarch once commanded. Without hesitation, Suho punched Baru, silencing him. In the middle of the forest, the sword guided Suho to the location where the gate to the sanctuary once stood. Suho noticed people still lingering at the late hour, finding it unusual. Baru remarked that some people strive to survive in their own ways. Suho's eyes widened, questioning why they would choose to hunt magic beasts at night when daylight offered better chances for survival. A truck arrived and the hunters opened the gate. Suho watched in silence as people with blindfolds and tied hands were forced out. One man grabbed a girl's face, examining her cruelly. Baru warned against taking action, reminding Suho of their trespassing. However, before Baru could finish, Suho had already vanished. The sword observed, acknowledging that Suho had already made his move. His father, a relentless violent crimes detective. His grandfather, a legendary firefighter. And the 21-year-old Sung Suho, who grew up watching them, now walking his own path. The man holding the girl's face turned, but it was too late. Suho had already leaped into action, a habit inherited from his family, to act first whenever they witnessed injustice.